Hi, this is an international master Alex Condon, and welcome to my promo lesson of my webinar that I'll be conducting soon on the theme of great chess talents at young age. So at this webinar I'm going to show and tell about a few games that I personally have played against great chess players when they were still young, and despite their really young age, you could still see the great potential, talent, and well, actually already a quite decent level of playing. But still, you could easily see that their potential is much higher than their current level of play. So in this promo lesson, I'm going to show you one relatively short game against one very unfamiliar guy named Aronian. Well, actually he really was unfamiliar at the time. The year is 1997 and the event is World Youth Championship Under 16. It was conducted in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, from which Levon Aronian comes. So I presume that the place of the event put some pressure on him, and eventually he finished second at this tournament. I was lucky enough to finish third, but still the game between us was, I think, one of the highlights for me, at least, of this tournament, because you will soon see why. Before I start showing you the game, it's important to stress that I was 16 at the time and Levon was only 15, and our ratings were as following. I had a rating of 2305, which was okay for a 16-year-old boy, but not more than that. And Levon already had 2440, which was very nice at the time for a 15 years old boy. But still, I'm sure there were higher rated players than he at this age. Surely today, when there are plenty of young and talented players with, I presume, ratings above 2500, I think even before they're 14. But still, at those times, I repeat, it was 1997, Levon was one of the most gifted young players, but as you would see in this game, it was quite obvious that he would go much further than that. It was just a question of time, not if it's going to happen at all that he would burst into the world's elite. So e4, I was white. c5, nothing interesting so far. Standard theory. Queen a5, a3. Well, nothing interesting really. I must mention that I did have a fever of 38.5 at the time of this game being played. That's not an excuse, but probably had I felt better, the game would have lasted a bit longer. KB5. Yeah, so why 95? Well, there are plenty of available options for white here, but probably one of the main reasons for me to going to the endgame was, like I said, my ill condition. So when you're seriously ill, I think the first thing you want to do is to trade queens when you play against a strong player. We were at the top of this tournament at the point that this game had been played. I think something like round 6 or 7, and we were in the leading group. So the last thing I wanted is to lose with white. So you try to avoid unnecessary risks. So that's why knight d5 rather than let's say h5 or g5 or plenty of other options available for white. However, it didn't help me. Okay, knight d5. Okay, so why did Levon take with the bishop? It's quite obvious. After this move, white can, let's say, take here, and this is probably a very slight advantage for white. Now let's say white can play something like bishop d3, then rook e1, etc. Maybe white is slightly better. Also white has this option, probably, right? Well, it leads to more or less the same situation where white is slightly better. So Levon preferred to give up on the bishop's pair, but to keep at least a tempo. And well, this knight is actually not a bad piece at all. But I think knight takes d5 was possible as well. Okay. And this is the beginning of a landslide. So bishop takes a7 is the obvious move, but of course I knew that player rated 2440 didn't just give up this pawn. Obviously he sacrificed it, but at the time being I didn't calculate properly all the tactics and frankly underestimated black's initiative. And of course I should have played something like I think either c3, yeah, just to solidify my position. Of course black cannot take on d5 due to this move, so c3 could be good, and then black could have played something maybe like b4, maybe, but then this knight on a7 would eventually become weakness at a certain point, so maybe a5. Now maybe something like king b1 or something like that, or bishop e2. So it's a complicated position despite being an endgame, and I think it's roughly equal because I think black's initiative and slightly better development compensates for the two bishops advantage. So yeah, bishop e2, king b1, something like that. So that was the normal move, or bishop e2 at this point. So those are the moves definitely I should have played, and I would have played them today. However, taking this pawn with the tempo looked too tempting for me at the time, so I decided to challenge Levon at his pawn sacrifice. Not the smartest idea of my life, but things happen. Okay. And now, of course, what would you play with black? I think the next move is quite obvious. It's quite obvious, and of course I have foreseen this move when I took the pawn, but what I had prepared is this maneuver. And now, of course, b3. Okay, so the point of white's maneuver is quite simple. Now I want to play king a2, and then something like bishop c4, and then white will be significantly better due to his bishop's pair, and also due to the fact that this pawn on a3 would become a serious weakness. And I presume that at a certain point this pawn would simply be eaten by my king. So also white can play something like c4, and then I mean first king a2, that's important, and then c4, although maybe c4 instantly is possible as well. So that's what I thought. However, Levon had other plans which I propose you to find. It's not that difficult. Well, like it usually happens in chess, it all comes up to a question of one tempo. Had it been white's turn, yeah, after c4 or king a2 is not possible due to knight takes d5 and then check on b4, but white can play c4 instantly, and then he would simply be significantly better. But it's black's turn now, and this extra tempo is crucial, so this is quite obvious. But what happens now? White wants to play bishop b5 and then bishop a4 and simply to eat this pawn, okay? Or c4 and then rook takes a2. It looks like this very brave pawn is about to get lost on a2, right? Well, wrong. Actually, black has two winning moves here, but let's see what Levon has prepared to me. This one, and now, well, actually it's already a winning blow. Now I have already calculated all the things, and it was quite obvious that I'm losing. So white has to, well, basically he has to resign, but why rook d1? Well, it's not very hard to see what would follow after taking the knight. What would you play? Quite obvious. Yeah. So now there is not my choice for white, let's say this, and that's it. So this pawn is not really a weakness, right? And there is really no defense after this. What would you play? Well, anything wins here. This wins, or if you want to get a pretty victory, then you play this. Doesn't really matter. And of course, I mean, there is absolutely no defense here. So that's why I didn't take this knight. Rather, did I play this move? But that has only prolonged for a few moves our struggle. What would you play here? Actually, anything wins here. Levon played knight f2, which wins instantly, but I think that taking on d4 was winning as well, and I presume that taking on c2 was also winning due to something like that. Now if you take there, now black can play something like this, and it's a completely lost position for white. So white's position simply collapses within a few moves. Well, Levon just calculated, he saw that he wins instantly, and there was no need for finding second or third victory. You can only win a chess game once, and you really don't need to find a few victories. So knight f2. Yeah, and here I decided that enough is enough, and I resigned. I must say that our previous game with Levon a year or two beforehand in Rapid Europe Championship under 14 in France, Euro Disney, has ended in a draw, so it was a much fairer struggle then, but not in this game. So the resume of this game: anyone can lose quickly the way I did, but I think that even in this quite short and really not very difficult game for black, Levon has showed his extreme tactical sharpness and his great play with initiative, his very active play with both colors, even with black. You remember this move? I'm not sure many people would have played rook fc8 here, simply giving up on the a7 pawn. I think most of us would have played something like a5. So Matt Levon was a tiger with both colors, and from the very young age, and he played quite aggressively, which is basically good in chess. And also you could see, I think, plenty of elements of strong and deep positional understanding. He played this opening the way I think the best dragon players would have played it. So I mean, just a flawless game, which you don't always expect from a 15 years old boy playing under pressure at his home court in Yerevan, and fighting for the leadership in a relatively important tournament. So that's it for today. Hope to see you soon in our webinar that will continue this theme of great chess players showcase their talent at relatively young age. Thanks for being with me and with us, the Chess Academy. That's it. Goodbye. Alex